It was hot during the day, and I became accustomed to working in the evening. I worked a couple late nights and noticed some real weird stuff going on next door in the trailer storage lot. We first noticed, was right out this window, we first noticed this lowlife in the back of the trailer lot working on a boat he just pulled in. He was bald, dirty, and was just a dirty tweaker. This guy was right on the other side of this makeshift fence, and on my side is thousands of dollars in tools and materials. I was not happy. Once I saw him there at night, I started to make it a point to be there at night. One night about midnight, both Wendy and I noticed a bunch of commotion at the back of the trailer lot. The RV that was next to the tweaker's boat was lit up, and there were 4 to 5 people there. A girl and a group of guys. We watched from what will be our kitchen, and these idiots were breaking up pills and mixing up a batch of meth to cook. That's out this window right here. It was so obvious what they were doing. The smell was like burned plastic, and they were cooking meth. We had encountered this on the mountain, and there was no way we could put up with this 15 feet off our back window. We got in the Jeep and drove right up, facing their operation about 30 feet away with the Jeep straight on towards them. Wendy threw on all the lights. It was like watching them bugs scamper around before you squash them. They scampered around but still had no idea with their little science experiment. They had to deal with their little science experiment. I stood in front of the Jeep with the shotgun, and it was cool to see my shadow with the gun about 50 foot tall on the mountain behind. We left the lights on and watched them. We both snuck back into our own house to get the closest look at out the kitchen window. While watching them finish mixing it up and start to cook it, Wendy could hear someone talking. She heard the girl said, "Why do I have to stay?" About 2 minutes later, all the guys loaded up into a little car and headed out in a hurry. Wendy called the sheriff, and they were not willing to come out for a drug lab. So weird to me and disappointing. Wendy told the sheriff that we felt unsafe and were going to defend our property. He said he was from Ridgecrest and they were sure busy. He then called back and said he would refer it to the Meth Task Force and no officer would be coming out. We never received a call back from anyone and no one ever showed. Seems crazy that we are all willing to stop and accept traffic tickets from these cops, the sheriffs who refuse to stop crime. Gets better. Way better. The next day, we headed to the local hardware store to buy trail cams to put up. Wendy briefly explained the issue to the owner of the store, and she happened to be friends with the owner of the trailer storage lot. Would you know, the next day, there were the owner of the trailer lot right in front talking to the caretaker. Wendy approached the edge of the property, and the caretaker and her owner approached Wendy. They asked what was going on, and Wendy explained there was a drug lab in the back of her property. The caretaker was quick to try and explain it away. I did get a look at this caretaker, and she was an obvious drug-induced mess. Once Wendy said the sheriff was called, then the caretaker was changing her tune, saying that she would be going to kick some ass. Right then, the black pickup with the drug-making bald man drove by. Wendy then said, "If you want to kick someone's ass, there he's going." The caretaker then jumped in her car and sped away towards him, pulling alongside and pulling him over. They had some words, and he came back with her. The guy tried to say who he was, and it became clear to the owner and Wendy that he was a trespasser. Wendy suggested that they call the sheriff right away, and of course the drugged-out caretaker said, "Oh, don't call the sheriff. Squatters have rights." So stupid, it's a storage lot, and they're in an RV cooking meth. Instead of the sheriff, this guy was then told to get out of there immediately and supervised by the caretaker that was obviously good. The girl had to stay behind the 2 nights before when it was cooking. We watched as the tweakers uncomfortably packed up and left. We weren't really satisfied with that, so we followed the RV right out of the city. Neither me or my wife would allow that thing to pull off the road anywhere around us. As we were following it out of the Kernville, we were on the highway. We were a car behind the RV, and we had 2 or 3 cars behind us. Wendy said, "Look at this idiot." And the same little caretaker car was now racing in oncoming traffic to pass all 6 of us to get in front of the RV. It was quite humorous to see the caretaker and her boyfriend, who works at the hardware store, speeding by us. They got in front of the RV and got it to follow them. We only gave chase for a while until it wasn't fun anymore. I can say fun, but with excitement and feeling of victory, it is an undertone of stress and worry. We were up every night after doing patrols. We now had both our dogs next door at the construction site for protection. Only a few nights later, Wendy heard the dog barking. We had been visited by a few bears recently, and Wendy headed over to check it out. I was starting to revert to my old brain. The brain was again causing problems. Not fun in relapse, but getting closer with every problem. Wendy was going a long time, and when she came back, she was freaked. She caught this new tenant of the old folks' home on our property, hitting our Rottweiler's cage with a big metal rake. She was yelling at our dogs, hitting the cages, saying, "If bears don't bark, then you don't need to bark." Wendy yelled at her to get that from the property, and as Wendy did that, she saw a medium-sized black bear run in between the two of them and off into the shadows. Wendy approached her, and she was still hitting the cages. Wendy and I still don't know what to do with this crazy old lady. She left the dogs, and Wendy told her to get off the property. Then she took the rake and stuck it at Wendy. Wendy caught it and took it from her. Then told her to leave, or Wendy would stick the rake right up her ass. The old crypt keeper, as she is known, left, then threatening to kill our dogs for keeping her up, barking at bears. If the crypt keeper wasn't so nasty, scary looking, toxic, and disgusting, then maybe one of them bears might have eaten her. Nothing wants anything to do with that evil witch. I have actually caught her doing weird witchy things in the corner of the property, so I asked the angels to now keep her in check. I know Wendy keeps that in check as well. With all this uncomfortable bull stuff going on, we are now on high alert. The tweakers ran deep our immediate area, and when the meth lab got ran out of town by them, many more started to leave. The caretaker never showed back up, and her boyfriend no longer works at the hardware store. Unfortunately, we were to still get shit for being who we were about things. Our boys had developed an obsession for going to this little convenience store up the road. They had a little cafe type thing and convenience store type stuff. We found ourselves getting lunch there a lot. It wasn't cheap, and we had actually commented that we needed to cut back on the place. A few days after the lab was chased out of town, we sent our boy Aiden up to get lunch. He was so happy to have the place he could go and feel somewhat like a home we lost. It reminded him of the country store up on the mountain. When Aiden returned, we all opened our lunches, and Aiden happened to look under the bread. Under there was a dirty Band-Aid. The tweaker working there left us a little gift, obviously for screwing up their little drug haven. First the dealer, then the lab. We got the other bad service and won't now go to 3 restaurants that are local. Now the war is on. We are not weak people, and if anything, we are a bit too aggressive. We were looking out for anything willing to come on our property. One night, about 10 or 11, we heard a loud bang in the space between our place and the old folks' apartment. Wendy grabbed her weapon, and as always, I was out the door with a shotgun. We could hear something behind the massage room. Wendy, of course, headed straight at them, and I went around to catch them with the 12 gauge in the street. Sure enough, Wendy flushed the bastard right straight to me. It was a bit exhilarating to full sprint around the corner into the street and get beat on what I thought was going to be a tweaker, but it was a black bear. They're not like the 550-pound monsters on the mountain. This was a little guy, only about 300 plus. Just like me. Both Wendy and I stood in the middle of Sierra High with guns in hand, looking at this bear attempt to break into trash cans and then hop over the neighbor's fence. It was so cute. After about 15 minutes, I realized that standing in a highway with a 12 gauge was a bad idea. We went inside with a chuckle. We are, of course, on patrol during the night and working during the day now. The construction was painful. We called out an electrician that had worked for me on the mountain. He had his assistant check out the wiring in the back house. I now know this assistant is part of that angry Tweeker crew, or at least he buys from them. He ended up cutting live wires in the attic and leaving them with all the breakers open. It didn't start a fire, but I learned with electrical it's all about percent chance of an issue. They then quoted us a price large enough to rewire the home to just fix what he cut and rework the panel a bit. We did not go with them. We thought it better to get someone from off the mountain to rewire the rear home. I started investigating what there was, and it was all mismatched and done wrong. We hired an electrician from Bakersfield, and in the meantime, I ripped the entire 3 foot off the bottom of the house. I needed to put new sill plates in where there were termite damage and fix siding issues with furniture tile job. Siding issues with a future tile job. I decided to open up the exterior of the home now so that the electrician could work without cutting up the drywall. The walls were now open to the elements, and of course, just like the roof, we would keep getting storms and forecasts. The electrician showed and stayed for a couple days while I did the job. I was working on other things while he was wiring. I can remember him giving me a look like I was an amateur when I put my hand through the window and left bleeding the first day on the job. The second day, I didn't spend much time there. I wasn't back there until the last day he was there. While talking to him, I noticed that the wires was the wrong gauge in one spot. He said, he had gotten to that yet and he would do it right now. He wanted approval to be finished. He reran that little spot, and then I let him know about my construction experience. His eyes got a bit wide and he left pretty quick. I was relieved and me and Wendy were both happy we now had electrical again. I can remember us high-fiving. Wendy told the electrician thanks and we had more work for him. That's great feeling lasted exactly 1 day. The next day I looked closer at the electrical he did. I found the first 20 amp breaker with small wire. I thought, oh no. I then saw all of it. He had ran the entire house with the wrong wire for the breaker size, spliced in with the old 1950s wire where he thought I couldn't see. And while it worked, it wasn't to code and would have actually violated my fire insurance. I was so upset. One more thing that was on me. Not one electrician that we called. With the utmost determination, I learned residential electrical wiring in about 3 hours online. I knew the gist of it being a commercial GC for all them years, but now I knew it all and what to do. The do's and don'ts are. Yes, you can fry yourself, but only if you're a rule breaker. These electricians have the easiest construction job, but charge the most for some silly fear of shock. Like concrete or steel can't kill you, right? Also, it's the nomenclature that gets you. For the next 2 years, I was rewiring the house. 2 weeks, years. It was easy, and Wendy actually got her money back from the electrician, which paid for new materials. I therefore have no hard feelings toward the electrician. While getting ready to leave to go into a big showing, we had to deal with 2 real-life zombies. In front of the trailer lot, Wendy noticed a truck with a lady and a guy who looked passed out in the front seat. They were at the front gate of the trailer storage lot. Wendy approached them, and they said to her that they heard some shit went down and they needed to get their shit out of there. Wendy came back to me and said that in tears that she can't handle this anymore of this and I needed to take over. I then went up to them and told them to get the fuck F out of there. No more tweakers allowed, F off. This old lady got out and was so wasted, and obviously so wasted for so long that she is no longer human. I told her we kicked the effing meth lab out and they need to go. She yelled at me, I am not on drugs. And I yelled back, then where is your effing teeth? They grabbed some drugs out of different RVs that happened to be 3 feet from our middle home. I got real heated, challenged her man, and yelled at them that we're from the mountain and they don't know who they're effing with as they drove off. We were late for a showing, and I told Aiden to watch out for them as we left. On our way out of town, we happened to drive behind them. I know that I was having thoughts of chasing the meth lab out of town, but we were late and we really didn't have that intention. It, however, was too funny to see them freaking, thinking we were following them. They immediately took a hard right and drove around the little park in Kernville, so we had to turn right to see what was going on. They then made another right and went behind the old abandoned forestry station. We didn't go around to park, so we just headed around the other side of the forestry station. As we rounded the corner, they were both evacuating the vehicle, each one with a drug bag in hand. Actually, more like a football-sized drug bag in each of their arms, like they were just got the ball and were protecting it, going in for a score. The guy was running towards a tract of homes in Kernville. The zombie female headed the other way, right into the middle of town. We watched her as she headed across the highway onto the seemed to get confused on where to go. She actually tucked that drug ball and hit it right up the middle of the highway, full stride. She was hightailing it right out of town, down the middle of a four-lane yellow-lined highway that encircles Lake Isabel and Kernville. We had to get to work, but drove right by her. Wendy let the sheriff know what went on. It is important to report things so that if you do kill someone or injure someone, there is a history of their aggression or craziness. It's not like the law does much. Later, one of Wendy's clients was sharing stories and let Wendy know that she found a black drug bag thrown on her front yard. It was full of hypodermic needles. That was the zombie's man's bag. They were back and so wasted it was crazy. The next day we found out from the trailer storage lot owner that the zombie couple hadn't paid their space rent for 7 years and they were squatting as well. This was a drug den for them. The owner of the RV lot told us that they were moving out and to leave them alone. I was in the house working hard on wiring, and I think it was Aiden who let us know there was weird smoke coming out of the zombie RV. They had moved the RV about 10 feet. Then the zombie man shoots up, pulls out a lounge chair, and sits it out where the RV was. Mr. Zombie was inside. Mrs. Zombie was inside the old RV for hours in over 100-degree heat weather with no fan or any kind, smoking tweak. You could smell it. We were going back and forth for a couple of hours with these idiots. Finally, we called the cops, and they decided to show up. Well, it was a highway patrol, and he only showed because this guy threw a razor knife at me. I was worrying at him and heard him cross the property line and start challenging Wendy. I rounded the corner, shocked him as he squirted back to the trailer lot. I was right in front of him and closed fist, ready to break his face. It is so hard not to let go. I would tell you, Lindy, to use a call word if it is okay or legal to attack. I otherwise never know when it's okay. That sounds really funny. I'm like a dog that way. But if my wife ever calls out the certain football cadence, I'll let go. This little guy went back to the chair. And as I was headed back towards Wendy, is when he threw a razor knife at me and said, "I think this is yours." Wendy at that point did put something that I never seen her do. She started rebuking the devil and all the evil that these two were doing. She was yelling, I rebuke the evil. I would not allow this evil around me. It was as if Wendy was channeling a Southern Baptist minister. I couldn't help but laugh. The ridiculous talk was enough to get them to stop challenging us. The razor knife throw was enough to get the highway patrol out. He showed up and told us they were now on notice that they needed to leave, and then congratulated us on chasing the meth lad out of town. He said if there were more like us, this would be a better place to live. Once a patrolman left, we were in a big hurry to get these zombies out of the storage lot so that we could get to Bakersfield for supplies. I told my teenage son to keep an watch out until they left. I let him know he was allowed to shoot them with a pellet gun if they crossed the property line. We found out on the way back that the zombie man took a piss in front of Aiden in defiance. Weak little man. I'm still furious about this and have not seen that man since. Lucky for him. This is good for him, also my freedom. I don't know. I will need a call word for that guy. I don't know if I'll need a call word for that guy. He's in trouble. The owner said that they would be moving RVs off the lot. Instead, they moved it to the other side of the lot. We would not take any more of this, and the owner agreed to tow the RV. We lined up a towing company, and a couple days went by. The tow service was a no-go. We could not sleep at night. I was patrolling, and if I wasn't up, Wendy was. It was complete bullshit, and I was now stepping back into my disease. All symptoms were returning, but not really back. I finished the electrical rewire and was super happy to have the feeling of we'd have power in the second time. I think Wendy was giving me a little more than a high five. I was feeling like I may be getting through this. I think it was only like 2 days later that the rain started to come. If the pressure of the meth lab zombies, electricians, the septic guy wasn't enough, the rain definitely was. It was crazy because the long electrical install timeline for the electrical, then to rip out what we had to and rewire, took us right into the peak of weather that had rain in the forecast about every other day. The entire bottom of the home was still cut off. Rain would destroy everything I had been working for months. To make it worse, the work was on the ground, so I had to squat all day. My guys could help me hold the concrete board, but screwing it in is hard for an experienced framer. It takes all the strength I have to do it right. It take that and squatting down and then put a heavy load on my other hand, and all that equals death for someone like me. The amount of re-damage I did to my brain during that concrete board struggle of a week may have been too much for me to handle. That was the moment when I sacrificed my health for my family's home. Pretty stupid. Check this out, though. Give my eyes a half a break of reading. That's the house with no pants on it there. You know, look right through the darn thing. We ended up spending the next 7 months finishing the home. We had to, of course, tile the home ourselves, do the shower and bathroom ourselves. My mother set my cabinets and paid for the countertops. Thanks, Mama. They're beautiful. My mom did this. My mother set these. Isn't that crazy? We hired a fence guy to copy the cool fence I started. He couldn't handle the pressure or something like that, so my 80-year-old father completed the fence with the help of my mama and the boys. Finally, now we have been working for over a year and we're moved in. In fact, I'll be moving into the new house in 2 days. I've been in here for a while now that I'm reading this. We didn't have a shower doors yet or propane, but that's good enough. I have beautiful shower doors now. They're amazing. Unfortunately, I have a 9-foot shower, by the way. 2 shower heads. Blows your mind. The things you can do if you're willing to do it yourself it's a lot of fun and a lot of work. Unfortunately, I'm now fully retarded again. Full of all my original symptoms, only worse. I feel as if death is on my left arm. However, I still have hope. With everything done, including my house and this book, I can now work for a state of healing, a second miracle. And let me show you a couple pictures on the way out on this chapter. So there's my cabinets when we were starting. This is them finished. If you're ever in Kernville or the Kern River, be sure to stop by Sacred Mountain. At Sacred Mountain Properties, we sell ranches out of this office here in my western town. And this is our hotel, Sacred Mountain River Suites. And it is 2 amazing suites and a spa with massage and soaking tubs. Thanks again for listening if you heard that one.